Hello friends. Happy New Year! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Grace. It is lovely to have you here as always. I am a little bit scared to be making this video. Today I'm going to be looking back at the video I made last year about the 24 books I wanted to read in 2024, and we're going to see how many of those I actually read. I'll be honest, my expectations are pretty low. I haven't seen that video in quite a while, so I can't fully remember the whole list, but when I've had a think about it, I can only think of about 8 or 9 books from that list that I have got to. I'm hoping there are some that I just couldn't remember were on the list. If I get halfway, if I get to 12, I will be really pleased with that, but I don't think that I have. I'm also quite interested to see, of the books that I did get to, which ones I actually enjoyed, how many I actually enjoyed, because one thing I've really discovered this year is that I'm pretty bad at predicting which books I'm going to love and which books just aren't gonna work for me. And these were 24 books that I was really excited to get to in the last year, so I'm interested to see if I actually enjoyed the ones that I did read. So without further ado, I'm gonna pop my chunky headphones on, so let's go back and see how many of these I managed to tick off my list. Welcome back to my channel. My name's Grace. This was my second still pretty new here ever video. I'm trying to make the coziest space possible. My hair's so brown. Number 1 on my list is a book that I honestly can't believe I haven't read yet, and that is A Darker Shade of Magic by V. Schwab. I have not read... No. I have not read this one yet. I would still like to. I don't know if it's going to be the first V. Schwab I get to anymore, because Chris, my boyfriend, keeps bugging me to read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue because he read that this last year. But I do still really want to get to the series, but starting off so strong. Next up, yet another book I cannot believe I've not read yet, and that is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. I have read this. I can't believe I can finally say that. I can't talk too much about it because I read it for a video that has not come out yet. But I did read this right at the end of the year. I managed to squeeze it in and I really enjoyed it. I won't say too much, but I did really enjoy it. So, well predicted, Grace. I'm really excited to get to the rest of the series this year, hopefully. I don't think we know when the 4th book comes out, but I have the 2nd and 3rd to tide me over in the meantime. And I've heard that things really change up from book to book, so I'm interested to see where the chaos of this series is going to take me. So we're 50-50 so far. Third on my list is a book by an author who wrote one of my favourite books of all time, and that is Howl's Moving Castle. So the author is Diana Wynne Jones, and the book is Charmed Life. This is one of her other series. No, okay, I haven't gotten to this one yet either. There's really no excuse for that one. I could have read that one probably in a day. Yep, I still want to read it, definitely. I still love Diana Wynne Jones, but I have not picked it up yet for some unknown reason. Moving on. Number 4 is the first book that I don't have with me because it is not actually out yet. I think that my copy is getting delivered today. Sadly, I have to film right now, otherwise I'd show you. But the book is Feybound by Sarah El-Rifi. Oh man. No, I have not read this one either. I was really excited for Feybound when it first came out, but unfortunately I haven't heard the best things, or kind of the hype has died down, which never feels like a good sign. But also, from what I have heard, I've heard quite mixed reviews. So I'm less excited for this one. I still want to get to it at some point and give it a try, but I'm not as hyped for it as I once was, which makes me really sad because it's gorgeous and the concept sounded really, really cool. I do still definitely need to give it a chance, but again, not got to it yet. Up next, at number 5, is a book that's been on my shelf for a few years now. It's getting embarrassing at this point because it sounds so interesting and I've not heard anyone else talking about it which could be a bad sign, but usually I find that I enjoy going into books without those external expectations that have been put on me by the internet. But anyway, the book is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Aston. I did read this with a caveat. Technically, I finished this after midnight on New Year's Day, but I am counting it because I was really close to finishing it and I stayed up so that I could finish it before going to bed, because to me that's still the same day, you know? So give me this one, okay? I need it. I got to the end of the year and realised I hadn't gotten to this one yet, and it was getting embarrassing at this point because this has been on my TBR for many years now, and I just wanted to have read it before the end of the year, so I managed to squeeze this one in as well. I did enjoy this one. I wouldn't say it blew my mind or anything. I think it's the kind of book that I would have enjoyed more if I'd read it as a teenager, which makes sense because it's a young adult book. It's aimed at that kind of age range. But I did think it was well written, and I listened to the audiobook, which is narrated by the author, and she narrates really well. I really liked all of the descriptions of cooking and food in here, and kind of the magic behind that was really cool. So yeah, I'd say enjoyed. Not a new favourite, but I had a fun time. Number 6 on my list is the first non-fiction. I am not a huge non-fiction girly myself. I would like to read more. Honestly, I struggle. I have not read that much non-fiction this year. But a lot of the time I do end up getting kind of bored. I need that story to pull me in. But I'm obsessed with mushrooms and I'd really like to learn more about them. And I thought a good way to start would be to read The Secret Life of Fungi by Aaliyah Whiteley. It's a... Ooh, okay, we're pulling it back slowly. I have read this. I thought it was okay. I didn't love it, I'll be honest. It did have interesting moments, but I'd say that percentage-wise, the parts of the book that were actually interesting facts compared to the parts of the book that were just kind of trying to be really poetic and were a little bit much, it didn't quite balance out the right way for me. But it was definitely easy to read if you are scared of diving into the deep end of science of mushrooms. Then this had a few fun facts in there, but it was largely just, wow, mushrooms are so cool, which I totally agree with, but I didn't need persuading. But we've evened our tables. That's 3 read and 3 unread. Number 7 on my list I don't have because I'm actually planning on listening to the audiobook, and that is The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. I've read it. Now, I did not read the Cruel... I've done it. I've actually read this and the sequel in the duology. I've finished the series. That's exciting. I did enjoy this one. I really did enjoy this one, actually. I love Holly Black's writing. I didn't enjoy the sequel quite as much. It really switched up the perspective and kind of the vibe of the series, and I kind of preferred what we were going with in the first book, I think. So The Stolen Heir I did really enjoy, and realistically any kind of fairy books that Holly Black brings out in the future I will be diving right into, and I do really enjoy those audiobooks, so that makes sense that I was planning to get to the audiobook for this one. I don't want to get my hopes up, but we're doing better than I expected. Number 8 on this list is another sequel, and I've mentioned it before, but that is Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands. This is a sequel to... I've read it! What's going on? Okay. I enjoyed this. Not as much as I was hoping I would. I'd heard some people say that they enjoyed this more than the first book, but it didn't hit for me in the same way that the first book did. It took me quite a while to get through. And I'm saying all this with the caveat of I did really enjoy it. I love Heather Fawcett's writing. I think I just expected a lot because I raced through that first book and was so hooked. And I know a lot of people have had like exactly the opposite experience, because there definitely were some flaws with the pacing of the first book, but it worked for me for some reason, and the second book didn't quite hook me in the same way. But I still really enjoyed it, and I'm very excited for the third book in the trilogy. So another one read. This is crazy. Number 9, we have a big high fantasy that has been really popular in the last year, but I've heard mixed things about, and that is The Adventures of Amina. I haven't read this yet. By Shannon Chakraborty. I actually just posted my 25 books that I want to read in 2025 video, And I remembered that I hadn't read this one from last year and I still really, really want to get to it. So I put it on my list again. That's how excited I am still to get to this one. And I think I'm honestly more in the mood for it now than I was then. So this year, this year it's gonna happen. The 10th book on this list is actually my boyfriend's favourite book and he really wants me to get to it, and that is The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by... She's only gone and read it. I have read this, I really enjoyed it. I read it quite close to the start of the year, around Valentine's time. I did a little Valentine's reading vlog and I read this one and it was really good. The world building here is actually some of my favourite world building in a fantasy book that I've ever read, which I wasn't expecting from a romantasy book, but would highly recommend this one. This was a great time. Good job, Chris, in recommending me a great book. Number 11 is a book in my constant quest for more cozy fantasies, and that is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. I have not read Half a Soul yet. Oh, I do still really want to read this one. I don't know why I haven't read that yet. I've heard really, really good things about this and it sounds very much like my kind of thing. I've really found this year that that kind of fantasy of manners, historical fantasy, is really just my favourite subgenre. And I think that's what this is. I really need to get to that one very soon. Next up, number 12 on my list is the first graphic novel, and that is On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden. This is... I knew it was going to go downhill. I have not read On a Sunbeam, and there is no excuse for that either. This is a graphic novel. I could have sped through this. That's upsetting. I still really want to get to this. It is chunky, but it's a chunky graphic novel, so it's really not going to take that long, and I've heard really good things. Again, it's sapphic, it looks really pretty, it's a cool found family in space, I think. I definitely need to pick that one up soon. That's embarrassing. So we are back to 50-50, 6 read, 6 unread. It could be worse, and it may get worse. Number 13 on the list is Morgan Is My Name by Sophie Keach. I have read this. Again, I cannot talk about it too much because I read it for a video that I'm still working on, but I had a great time with this one. I was so excited because it is an Arthurian myth retelling and I really like Arthurian legends and that whole atmosphere and vibe, and it did not disappoint. I really want to get to the second book in this series this year. And again, a great audiobook. Really enjoyed this one and the way it was narrated. Oh, I'm so happy about that. Number 14 is a book by an author who's really blown up recently, but it's actually her first book, and that is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. Now I have not read this yet. I did read the second half of the Divine Rivals duology that I was talking about there. I thought it was alright. I don't know. I didn't feel quite the obsession with it that many other people seem to. I had a fun time, but I thought it was kind of okay, you know? I do think that A River Enchanted might be more my kind of thing, and I would still like to give that one a go, but I think I haven't been as enthusiastic because I kind of just felt a bit ambivalent about this author's other series, but I do definitely still want to give it a try. Number 15 is another non-fiction, yet again me trying to get into my non-fiction era, and that is Forget Me Not by Sophie Pavel. I haven't read Forget Me Not yet. I still would love to. I still think it looks really interesting and I would like to read more environmental non-fiction. My attention span is not what it used to be, and it's never been great when it comes to non-fiction, I'll be honest. I did not read much non-fiction this year at all. I definitely would like to work on that in the future, so still on the list. Number 16 on this list is another high fantasy that I've heard such good things about, and it's been on my to-read list for a good while now, and that is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. Oh no, okay. I am reading this. I have nowhere near finished it. It's quite a chunky book. I started reading it in a vlog a while ago now, and I have since been distracted by other books that I had to read for videos mostly, but I would really like to finish this one hopefully by the end of January because I am really enjoying it so far. I'm really interested in the perspectives of the two women that we're following, and the world building has a little bit of creepy plant magic going on, which is always a big tick from me. So I will definitely be finishing this one soon, but unfortunately not yet. Now the next book I do not have because it is not out yet. It's coming out this year, and that is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I've read it. This is a bit of a wild card. I mean, it was an Emily Henry, so it was gonna happen. I'll be honest though, this is my least favourite Emily Henry book that I've read. I didn't enjoy this one as much as I was hoping to. I don't know if I just had too high expectations because the last one I'd read was Happy Place, which is by far my favourite book by her and one of my favourite books ever. But this one didn't quite hit for me in the same way. I still had fun, but I wasn't as emotionally damaged by it, which I guess is my meter for how good an Emily Henry book is. And then I went on to read Book Lovers later in the year, and I much preferred that one. That one worked a lot better for me. But yes, I did read it. I did enjoy it, not as much as I hoped, but I'm still very much an Emily Henry girly. Number 18 is surprisingly another non-fiction book, and that is The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. No. This seems to have also Okay, so I started this and then I realised it's actually very project heavy. It's kind of almost more of an experience than a book, and I realised I just did not have the time or the bandwidth to do the actual experiments and tasks that this book instructs you to do. So I have put it down for now. I may get to it at some point when I have a bit more time in my life, but now is just not the right time for it. So another one I've not read, but I think that one's fair. Oh, that's 10 unread. The next book on my list, number 19, is another one I don't have because it's coming out later this year, and that is A Dark and Drowning Tide. I have read this. I've been meaning to. This is yet another one that is for this video that I'm still working on, so I cannot give my full opinion, but this was alright. It didn't quite live up to what I hoped it would be, and I think that that seems to be the general opinion. I think quite a few people feel a little bit let down by this one. The concept was so exciting. I was really, really excited to get to this one, and it didn't quite do what I was hoping it would do, so that was a little bit of a letdown, but I have read it. Number 20 on this list is another one that I have not heard anything about on the internet, but that is Our Divine Mischief by I have not read it. Howard. I still want to. I have not read it. I remember there's a magic dog, which I think is all I need to remember really. I do still want to get to it. I haven't read it yet. Number 21 is yet another non-fiction. I'm really trying to get There's a lot of non-fiction on this list. But I actually picked this up the other day. I've been thinking about it for a while, and that is Enchantment. I have read it. I have read this one. I didn't love it. I thought it was going to be a bit more of like a self-help book, which isn't really what I normally go for, but it was the expectation that I'd kind of set for this book, and then it was a lot more memoir, I would say. It was kind of just talking about this person's experience through lockdown and very personal to them rather than things that I could kind of take and implement in my own life. Definitely have not found my niche in non-fiction yet. Number 22 on the list is a little sequel novella to one of my favourite books of all time, which is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. Wonderful. And this is the sequel novella, Mysteries of Thorn. I've read it. I thought I was talking about something else, but no, I have read this one. Look at me go. I'm genuinely really impressed with myself. I didn't think I'd read this many, which shows how low my standards were. I read this right at the start of the year. I did a 24-hour reading vlog at the start of the year, and I read this one and I enjoyed it. I think that it wasn't necessarily actively needed, but it was a fun time. It was atmospheric, it was really cute and delved into the romance a little bit more. The house that they live in is very anthropomorphized. Is that the right word for a house? It's very whimsical. It's a fun time. If you enjoyed Sorcery of Thorns, then I think you will have a fun time with this one, but I also don't think that you need to read it to have enjoyed Sorcery of Thorns, if that makes sense. We are on 11 read and 11 unread. We're so close to halfway, we could do it. Number 23 on this list is a book that I got last year and I was so excited for, but I haven't read yet and I don't want to lose that momentum, so I need to read it this year, and that is Sisters of Sword and Shadow by
I've read it.
I didn't like it. But that doesn't matter right now. I have read it. I read half of these books at least. That's so exciting. Unfortunately, the book that has gotten me to the halfway point was really one of my more disappointing reads of the year. This author has a background in feminist non-fiction, and I think you could really tell that they just weren't very experienced in fiction writing, and especially in young adult fantasy. It kept feeling like things were going to happen and then there was no follow through. There were several kind of tropes that were touched on that really heavily implied things based on that genre, and then nothing came of it. It was a really strange read and I was so excited for it, so that made me really sad. But I've read half of the books. We're taking the win. Now can I go over halfway? Okay, I don't want to get too big for my boots. Last but not least, number 24 on this list is a book that I've been thinking about reading for a while. One thing I realized recently is that a lot of my favorite books of all time are actually kids books. I think there's something about, especially kind of older kids books, Anne of Green Gables, Howl's Moving Castle, they just capture. I haven't read that many kids books this year. That joy, something really healing for me. Okay, so get to the point, Grace. I want to give a try, and that is Kiki's Delivery Service. I have read this. I did read Kiki's Delivery Service. This was alright. This was an easy read, a fun time. I read this at the start of a 24-hour reading vlog in the summer, and it really helped to kick that off because I got through it really quickly. I don't think it had a huge amount of depth to it, but for a kids book it was fun. It was very much a coming of age about a girl going out into the world on her own, coming into her own confidence and figuring out what kind of person she wants to be, but at quite a light level, I would say. It's very short and cute, but nothing too life-changing. But I've read 13 of the books on this list, 13 out of 24. Let me take my chunky headphones off. I'm genuinely so pleased with that. I thought I'd done much, much worse. I'm really, really pleased with that. I mean, it obviously could be better, but it's much better than I expected. Okay, I just have to beat that next year then. I would like to at least read 15 out of 25, I think. Ideally, a chunk more than that. I think if I could get to somewhere around 20, I would be buzzing. But I am chuffed with that result. Go Grace, good job reading this year. I read 56 books total this year, which is so much more than I've ever read before. In 2023, which was the biggest reading year I'd had before this one, I read 34 books, so there's really a big difference in my reading this year, and that I definitely have YouTube to thank for. I've read a lot of books for videos and it's really motivated me, and having all of you guys leaving me lovely comments about what you're reading, what you think are books that I'm thinking of reading, it's really spurred me on, so thank you so much for that. And it honestly hasn't been the best reading year in terms of the percentage of those books that I've actively loved, but I think I'm still really grateful for just the breadth and amount that I've managed to get through. I think I've learned a lot about my taste this year. I've tried out new things that I didn't think I would enjoy as much as I did, so I'm really excited to bring all of those things into my reading in the future, and hopefully they can steer me towards a better reading year in 2025. If you want to see the 25 books that I am hoping to get to this year, then I will link that video down below, and I guess we will see this time next year how well I did. How well did you do if you set yourself a TBR for the year? How much of that did you end up getting to? And how good were you at predicting which books were actually going to be favourites for you? How many of those books on that list were actually books you really enjoyed when you did pick them up? I find that really interesting. I think that mine was kind of 50-50. I think these were all books that conceptually could have been really interesting to me, but some of them the writing just didn't follow through. But there was still a good few on this list that I really enjoyed, so I'm right sometimes, at least. I'll take it. So thank you so much for watching this video. I'm glad it wasn't as embarrassing as I thought it was gonna be. I hope that your 2025 has been going really well so far, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye bye.